The other part that I think is really important for people to realize, and I know this is semi-crazy to say this, because we just watched the three greatest players that ever lived over the course.
19 years old. A room packed with cameras, microphones, and journalists. Every single person in that room already knows the question that is coming. This is the kind of moment that has chewed up and spat out athletes twice her age, athletes with years more experience, athletes with far less to lose. And she just sat there, completely still, and answered with 15 words that made the entire tennis world go quiet. Stay with me, because what happened in Austria this week is not just a viral clip. It is something much bigger than that, and by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why. The Upper Austria Ladies Linz tournament is not some warm-up event people skip on the calendar. It is a 500-level WTA tournament, one of the most prestigious stops on the European clay circuit. This year it was celebrating its 35th anniversary, and the organizers went all out. They took a design center in the heart of the city, a building that has never hosted a tennis match in its life, and over the course of 5 full days, they transformed it from the ground up into a stunning indoor clay arena. Fast, demanding clay. The kind of surface that exposes every weakness within the first few games. The kind of surface that does not lie. Alex walked into that environment and looked completely at home. She had been putting in serious work at the Rafa Nadal Academy, grinding on the specific footwork, the lateral movement, the art of sliding into ground strokes with confidence. When she spoke to the press before her first match, there was no nervousness in her voice, no performance. Just this quiet, visible hunger. She talked about the challenge of clay at this level, about everything she had been building behind the scenes, about how much she wanted to show what that work had produced. And then she went out and showed exactly that. Her opponent in the opening match was Julia Grabher. And before you dismiss that name, understand this. Grabher is a serious professional. She knows how to construct long points on clay. She knows how to grind opponents down, how to use the surface to neutralize pace and make the match ugly. She came in with a real game plan. But Alex came in with weapons. Her forehand was loaded with heavy topspin, the kind that lands deep, kicks high, and forces opponents to scramble backward out of every comfortable position they try to build. Her serve, which has quietly developed into something genuinely dangerous over the past several months, was picking corners with a consistency that looked almost casual. And her movement, the part of her game that critics have spent years circling with a question mark, was sharp and purposeful. She was sliding, recovering, staying aggressive, and never giving Grabher a single breath of space. The crowd inside that converted design center was electric. And here is something you need to understand about Alex that goes beyond tennis rankings and match statistics. She does not just bring fans to tournaments. She brings an entire atmosphere. Filipino flags in the stands. Banners. People who traveled across continents for the sole purpose of being in the same building as the person they call their national treasure. Every single winner she struck pulled a roar out of that crowd that felt 3 times bigger than the venue could reasonably hold. And she absorbed every decibel of it and turned it directly into fuel. She won convincingly. She walked off with her fist raised, pointed to the crowd, blew a kiss to her people, and looked every bit the elite player she is clearly becoming. It should have been a pure celebration. A teenage girl from the Philippines representing a country that has never produced a professional tennis player at her level, quietly and powerfully announcing herself as a real force at a serious European clay event. A story about sacrifice, about distance from home, about the kind of belief in yourself that most people never find. But instead, something else happened. Because John McEnroe had apparently been watching. And he decided to talk. Now look, McEnroe's reputation needs no introduction. 7 Grand Slam titles. A playing career defined by genius and volatility in almost equal measure. A commentary career built on the idea that unfiltered honesty is actually a form of respect for the sport. Sometimes that philosophy produces real, valuable insight. Sometimes it produces exactly what happened here. What he said, and the substance of it has been confirmed across multiple major outlets, was a direct and pointed attack on everything surrounding Alex's rising profile. He suggested that the excitement around her was being driven more by clever marketing and a passionate fan base than by any real Grand Slam-level credentials. He raised doubts about her physicality, about whether her body and her engine were actually built for sustained competition at the highest level. And then he went after something harder to measure but far more damaging in the world of sports commentary. He questioned her killer instinct. That phrase, think about what it actually does when it gets thrown at a young athlete. It says that no matter how hard you work, no matter what you achieve, no matter what numbers you put up, there is something fundamental inside you that is simply absent. It is the kind of criticism that cannot be argued against with statistics or match results because it exists entirely in the realm of feeling and subjective perception. It is a door that gets locked from the outside. And it gets aimed disproportionately at young players from countries outside the traditional tennis powers, as a quiet way of saying that belonging here was never really meant for you. That is not analysis. That is dismissal wearing the costume of expertise. The tennis world reacted almost instantly. Social media erupted. Fans in the Philippines and across Asia were furious. The hashtag defending Alex was trending across multiple platforms within the hour. Former players, journalists, and commentators were weighing in from every corner, many of them genuinely appalled that a 19-year-old in the middle of the most successful clay week of her professional career was being publicly targeted like this. And here is the thing you need to understand about that specific kind of criticism. The only real answer to it is not a counterargument. It is a moment. And Alex was about to give them one. She walked into that press conference, and the energy in the room was something that everyone present seemed to feel immediately. There is a very particular kind of silence that falls when everyone knows a significant question is coming and nobody knows how it is going to land. She sat down. She answered the straightforward questions about the match thoughtfully. She talked about her game plan. She praised the tournament. She thanked her supporters. And then a journalist asked her directly about McEnroe's comments. The room went quiet. 2 seconds of silence that somehow felt much, much longer. She did not look away. She did not reach for her water bottle. She did not take a dramatic pause to gather herself. She leaned forward slightly, held the gaze of the reporter, and said calmly and clearly, "I play for my country and my fans, not for the approval of past legends." 15 words. That is the entire answer. And those 15 words did more damage to every argument being made against her than any ranking climb or tournament title could have managed on its own. There were no insults in those words. No visible anger. No attempt to score points or manufacture a viral moment. Just an absolute, unmistakable clarity about her purpose. About who she plays for. About what gets her out of bed every single morning to go through the brutal physical and mental demands of professional tennis at the highest level. She was not interested in McEnroe's validation. She never was. She has millions of people at home watching her every match, crying when she wins, drawing something deeply personal from her journey. Those are the people she is accountable to. And no amount of skepticism from a man whose playing days ended before she was born was going to touch that foundation. The clip spread across the internet with remarkable speed. Within hours it had been watched millions of times. Athletes from completely unrelated sports were sharing it. Celebrities were commenting on it. People who had never watched a single WTA match in their lives were suddenly paying close attention to this 19-year-old from the Philippines and exactly what she had said and how she had said it. Because there is something almost impossible to look away from when a young person faces a powerful critic and responds not with heat but with stillness. It is one of the rarest things in professional sports. Most athletes in that position either retreat into safe, diplomatic language that says absolutely nothing, or they overcorrect into an emotional reaction that ends up swallowing the original story whole. Alex found something in between that almost nobody finds on the first try. She was dignified without being passive. She was fierce without being aggressive. She was completely and unmistakably herself. To understand why this moment hit as hard as it did, you need to know the road she has already traveled to get here. She left the Philippines as a teenager and moved to Spain to commit herself to the Rafa Nadal Academy, which is not a comfortable or forgiving environment by any measure. It is one of the most demanding training setups in all of professional tennis, built on a philosophy of relentless work and no shortcuts. She spent years navigating the loneliness of being thousands of miles from home, carrying the weight of being a national symbol before she had even broken into the top 100 in the world, and operating under a level of public scrutiny that most players at her stage of development will never come close to experiencing. She won the Junior Grand Slam at the US Open. She has been climbing the WTA rankings with methodical, quiet consistency. Every single step of that journey has happened in public, under a spotlight, with an enormous fan base watching and hoping and feeling every result as if it were their own. So when someone sits in a television studio and tells the world that a player who has lived exactly that life lacks killer instinct, the absurdity of that claim is almost too large to contain. It is also worth connecting this moment to something that happened earlier this year at the Miami Open, because the two episodes illuminate the same truth about who Alex is becoming. She was in a match against veteran Laura Siegemund, a player with deep experience and every psychological tool available to a seasoned professional. At a crucial moment in that match, a dispute over time violations escalated into a vocal argument between Alex and the chair umpire. Siegemund was doing what experienced players do, using every available lever to put pressure on a younger opponent, to make the environment feel hostile and unstable. Alex stood her ground. She argued her case loudly and without apology and refused to be destabilized by seniority or reputation. At the time, some observers called it too emotional. Looking at it now, from the other side of what just happened in Linz, it reads completely differently. That was not a crack in the armor. That was the armor being built, tested under real heat, holding together. The WTA has clearly been paying attention to everything happening around Alex. Tournament director Sandra Riel spoke with genuine enthusiasm about her presence in Linz, describing players like her as exactly the future the sport needs. That is not promotional language for the sake of a press release. The commercial and cultural reality of what Alex brings to every city she plays in is becoming impossible to ignore. The engagement she generates, the markets she opens, the demographic groups she reaches, these are things that matter deeply to a sport that is always searching for ways to grow beyond its traditional base. The Philippines alone is a massive, sports-hungry population that has historically had almost no connection to professional tennis. Alex is that connection.